Every day in America sees another national scandal that would bring down the government in any other country. Not so with Donald Trump and his regime of far-right nationalists. No, for some reason, they can just keep setting everything on fire, and journalists haven't got the time to cover every story. In fact, a story that came and went yesterday is that Trump on Friday said he'd ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions in response to the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, about the risk of war between the nuclear-armed adversaries. Well, security analysts called Trump's move a rhetorical escalation with Moscow, given that the United States already has nuclear-powered submarines that are deployed and capable of striking Russia. Medvedev on Thursday said Trump should remember that Moscow possessed Soviet-era nuclear strike capabilities of last resort, after Trump had told Medvedev to watch his words. Based on the highly provocative statements of the former president of Russia, Dmitry Medvedev, I have ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in the appropriate regions just in case. These foolish and inflammatory statements are more than just that, Trump said in Friday's Truth Social post. He added, words are very important and can often lead to unintended consequences. I hope this will not be one of those instances. Donald Trump, off the back of a tweet that obviously caught him in the wrong mood, caused him to make strategic military decisions because, he was trying to flex his muscles and prove that he's a strong man? Reporters asked him later that day why he ordered the submarine movement. Trump said a threat was made by a former president of Russia and we're going to protect our people. I mean, if a true nuclear threat was going to be made, it wouldn't be made on Twitter.
I think it's very risky business for a lot of reasons. Most significantly, it seems to reveal Trump doesn't really understand how our nuclear navy works and what their plan of operation is. As for Medvedev, it's true he's a former Russian president, a former prime minister, in fact, always subordinate to Vladimir Putin. Right now, the position he holds is equivalent to Deputy National Security Advisor in the United States. And it's just really very ill-advised to have the president responding to somebody like that, whatever they're tweeting on whatever subject. Even if somebody should respond to him, it shouldn't be the president.
The executive director of the Arms Control Association advocacy group said this is irresponsible and inadvisable. This is Darrell Kimball, who said that no leader or deputy leader should be threatening nuclear war, let alone in a juvenile manner on social media. Hans Christensen of the Federation of American Scientists said that nuclear submarines, part of the so-called nuclear triad with bombers and land-based missiles, were always positioned to launch nuclear-armed missiles at targets in Russia. He said these subs are always there all the time, and they don't need to be moved into position. Trump grants Medvedev a response to these crazy statements. The U.S. has a total of 14 Ohio-class nuclear-powered submarines. Each is capable of carrying up to 24 Trident II D5 ballistic missiles that can deliver multiple thermonuclear warheads up to 4,600 miles. Between 8 and 10 Ohio-class submarines are deployed at any one time, according to the Nuclear Threat Initiative Arms Control Group. If this is all it takes for Donald Trump to make some strategic decisions, contrary to the advice of the security services, where Trump as commander-in-chief with no military experience is like, okay, bad tweet, me move submarines. That is a scary prospect for anyone. And I know that Trump was goading Volodymyr Zelensky in the Oval Office that time about you're going to cause World War III. Well, Trump projects. If you want to know what Trump is really thinking, you just flip all of his sentences. Trump is trying to instigate World War III. Moving submarines, whether he moved them or not, it's highly likely that he was just posturing or showing off, as his mum might say. And this is the problem, is that Trump treats the US military like his train set, like his toys, like he is a child. And he's playing the role of a president on a TV show.
I don't think Putin takes the threat seriously that Trump has been making about secondary sanctions, which would involve more sanctions, more tariffs, whatever, on countries like India and China that have been buying Russian oil and gas contrary to U.S. and EU sanctions because of the war in Ukraine. Putin, for whatever reason, thinks that the Russians are winning in Ukraine despite the horrific human cost. And obviously, after 6 months of trying to get a ceasefire, Trump has failed. No indication that's going to change.
Trump and Medvedev had traded taunts in recent days after Trump on Tuesday said Russia had 10 days from today to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine or be hit with tariffs. Trump was creating a commitment trap by fueling expectations that he could resort to nuclear weapons if tensions escalated further with Russia. Evelyn Farkas, executive director of the McCain Institute and a former senior Pentagon official, played down the idea that this could lead to nuclear conflict. It's really signaling. It's not the beginning of some nuclear confrontation, and nobody reads it as such, and I would imagine the Russians don't either, she said. She said that Trump's actions, however, were unlikely to get Russia to change course in Ukraine. And that's really, in my opinion, what this is about. Trump, who promised to end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours, doesn't know what he's doing. He has failed time and time again to secure any lasting peace, even a temporary ceasefire. He does not have the diplomatic skills. He doesn't have the negotiating skills. He calls it making a deal, but it's not about a deal. A ceasefire is not a deal. These are two completely different things. One requires a certain skill set, and the other requires you to shaft the other side with your business dealings. I mean, I really am of the opinion that Trump has hit the wall when it comes to Ukraine, and so all he has to fall back on now is threatening nuclear war with his nuclear warheads and his nuclear submarines. He is a child, and unfortunately it's this childlike behavior, it's this lack of life experience, it's this lack of military strategic knowledge that is the reason why Trump could get the US into a war with Russia without really meaning it. I mean, he's just a hatch and a button press away from disaster. Remember, Trump said that he wanted to nuke a hurricane in his last administration. That is the level of intellect we have with this guy. I think he thinks he could win a nuclear war. Such is the amount of ego and narcissistic personality disorder that makes up this flawed individual.
I certainly know from my own experience that you could find a tweet coming out any hour of the day or night on some national security issue that came directly from Trump. So it's possible that's what happened here. I hope somebody from the Pentagon who understands the disposition of the nuclear force explains this to Trump at some stage. And as I said, while the ballistic missile submarines are core to our second strike capability, they are also perfectly capable of being part of a first strike on Russia. So you could see people in the Kremlin, obviously always nervous about our capabilities, believe that Trump is trying to insinuate that he may be considering a first strike, which is even more dangerous.
Yeah. And remember, he's replaced key military personnel with loyalists. So there's not even pushback from the military, as there was under previous administrations. Trump really has created this safe space for himself, surrounded by yes people. And that is what makes me so nervous about America's future, indeed the world's future, with dictator Trump at the helm and in charge of the nuclear codes. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on The Weekend Show with MeidasTouch.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.meidastouch.com. All 100% USA union made.